playing with my new ring light to see what works best for filming. I think this one, not this one, not this one. Yeah, I think this one. Hi, hello, and welcome back to the Night Sky Knitting channel. My name is Rachel. I am a knitter based out of Ottawa, Canada, and this channel is my chatty outlet to talk all things knitting with occasional guest appearances by other crafts. Not today. And pretty sure this is the first time I'm posting a video since the new year, and I hope that yours is going well. I really wanted to film a podcast episode today, but I actually don't really have that much to show you guys. There were a couple stray gifts that I never showed you in finished object form before I gave them to the recipients and then returned to Ottawa. So we're gonna pretend those don't exist. You saw all but one as a whip. Anyway, that final one I will show you sometime in February when I'm back in Toronto and can film a little clip then to talk about Latvian braids, etc. However, we're going to treat this as a new year podcast reset. I have new projects to show you that I don't think you guys have seen before. I am back to focusing on knitting mostly for myself. I have garments going on, I have mittens going on, I have a few acquisitions I'm excited about. So this is going to be a little refresh. We're back, it's a new year, got new projects, and we're gonna go. First and foremost, I'm wearing my crescendo blouse by Sophie Hemmings, which I test knit this time, or I finished this time last year. I knit this in Knit Picks Aloft mohair in the color Kenai and Cascade Heritage Sock yarn in the color Como. I really like this blouse. I wear it a lot, especially to work, but also sometimes to casual occasions. And every so often I do consider knitting another one in a more neutral color, but I actually do get a lot of wear out of this. So that's what I'm currently wearing. In case you were wondering, I still love my crescendo. The only finished object I have to show you guys today is a pair of mittens, and they're not even fully finished. I'll show you them now. So these are kind of a mix between the Wintergak pattern by Karen Holmberg and the Arched Gusset Mitt by Pearl Soho, which is a free pattern that has been, I think, all over knitting social media, in part popularized by my dear friend Emily of High Fiber Knits. And the Wintergak pattern, you knit a mitten, and then you felt it, and then you embroider it. So I've knit a mitten, and I have felted it, but as you can see, there's currently no embroidery. And I got that pattern because from the moment I first saw anybody make it, I loved it, and I loved that it's warm and practical in the form of being felted. It's kind of fast because you knit bigger needles and a looser gauge to felt things down. And then I loved the opportunity to embroider onto my knitting, even though I have very little embroidery experience. And I got the pattern, but I really liked that arch gusset of the titular arched gusset mitt. I really like that effect. I think it's really cute. I like that it follows the lifeline. Emily said it's quite ergonomic. And so I made sure that I had the lengths and the ratios and the size that would work for felting based on the Wintergak pattern, but then I did the gusset increases along the lines of the Arch Gusset Mitt from Pearl Soho, and I'm very happy with how these turned out. They're warm. They're not soft, but I didn't really use a soft yarn, and it's not scratchy. It's just not soft. And I think these are going to be really warm, and I love the way that this is kind of like a winter cream white. This is yarn that I received as a gift from my friend Carolyn after she went to Scotland and stayed at a B&B run by a couple that keeps their own sheep. The yarn is sold online, you can get it too. I think it's called Isle on the Edge. I will link it down below and have all the information, but this is the natural undyed sheep color, which will be a theme this episode. I have 3 separate projects to show you that are all featuring undyed natural colored yarn, and this is the first. The only thing is I was quite concerned about felting these mittens down too much, so I knit them just a little bit longer than I should have, and the top of my longest finger is here and the top of my thumb is here. When I bend it, I don't really have as much mobility as I would like, so I'm thinking I'm going to felt this down just a little bit further, maybe with an actual felting needle before I embroider onto it. I'm not sure. This yarn did not particularly want to felt. I felted it by hand for about 40 minutes before giving it up and tossing it in the washing machine with a couple other things I was felting, and then a whole bunch of our kitchen towels. And it took 2 runs in the washer with cleaning a bunch of kitchen things and felting this and a couple dryer balls before it really felted down. I could see that it was felting in my bucket as I was hand felting, which is not my first time doing it, and I feel like I know what I'm doing when it comes to hand felting mittens in a bucket a little bit. And this has now felted. It is much thicker and warmer and feels like felt compared to the original fabric I was knitting, and for that reason, the fact that I can't show you what that looks like to compare it to is why I'm sad I didn't start these in time to film and show you, so you don't have any frame of reference, but you can still see the stitch definition. Even though this is felted, and in my previous felting projects that has not been the case, you can pretty much not see the stitches anymore, and this mix of fibers just did not want to felt, which it still did felt. It's very even, the felt that did happen. It did soften up a pretty scratchy yarn, and I think it's beautiful. However, I'm not taking that as a loss. I'm taking that as incredibly useful information in what types of breeds of sheep are probably produce a wool that's a little bit more resistant to felt, which is very interesting and very useful information. Also, I'm still really happy with these. It was a little bit more work, but not work that I found frustrating or annoying. I like felting things, and I like the final object, and I liked learning more about what kinds of things felt better than others. Alpaca felt very, very well, in case you're wondering. Yeah, so I think sometime this week, I'm maybe gonna have another go at the mitten top and these tops. I really like the width of this. The Wintergak pattern did not lead me astray. And I really like the embroidery pattern that Karen Holmberg has at the bottom of that. And I'm excited to do, I think I'm going to use some superwash yarn to embroider so that I can toss these in a wool cycle and not be too concerned because this is already felted and that's gonna be a superwash yarn. And I have some scrap superwash sock yarns that I think will fit the bill quite well. But overall, I consider these to be a success. They're just more of a half finished object than a full finished object. And I really need mittens, and I'm really happy that I have these. I think they're gonna be a beautiful neutral with most of my coats. And if for some reason I decide that these are too scratchy to wear, which I can tell you off the bat, they're currently not, my friend suggested that we sew a liner in, and that'll work too. I also really like how long these go down my wrist. It feels practical that you don't have the wind gonna go through your sleeve, which sometimes happens with shorter mittens and gloves, and it kind of feels like a little elegant. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe you're looking at this and you see oven mitts, but I don't. And yeah, I'm really happy with these. They were pretty fast to make, and I like felt, and I like that these are going to be nice and warm. I am going to, on the advice of an incredibly wise commenter and then a few people who DM'd me on Instagram after my last episode when I talked about how I always lose mittens, I am going to knit an I-cord and attach it on either side. I do not care if I look like a child. I do not care if people laugh at me. I'm so sick of losing mittens. And anybody who follows me on Instagram knows the saga of the hat that I lost and then found again in Toronto over break. My friend Janessa texted at the time because I said I thought that I lost the hat at St. George Station in Toronto, and she was like, "It's always St. George, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yes, it is. It's always St. George Station." But then I found it on the street 3 hours later. Mittens. I plan to make at least one more pair of mittens this year. I'm really enjoying mittens right now. I haven't been knitting as many socks in comparison, but I'm very happy with mittens because I need mittens because I always lose mittens. Next, as we talk about unfinished or half-finished objects, you may recall a certain cardigan that I started 2 months ago, the Luz cardigan by Atelier Amélie, who's a French designer who mercifully translates her beautiful, beautiful patterns into English. Quite well, I might add. I find it to be a very well-written pattern. This is the Luz cardigan. You might notice it's not attached to any needles, because I decided to work very off gauge for this. This pattern is meant to be knit in 2 strands of mohair held together. However, I had this yarn that I wanted to make into a cardigan, which is some small bird workshop yarn. It was a limited run yarn because it's the fleece of just one sheep whose name is Garcia. It's 65% Garcia's fleece and then 35% Polypay, which is another breed of sheep, but a bunch of them from a different fiber mill in Alberta, Canada, milled with the Garcia. I'm sorry, I'm going about this in a very rambly way. Because it's only one fleece of one sheep that year plus miscellaneous other Polypay sheep, it's not a repeated base or yarn. And this is entirely undyed, and it has some really beautiful heathering and color gradation because you can see there are some darker guard hairs that made their way in there that creates, in my opinion, a lovely depth of color. I really, really like working with this yarn. It's a sport weight and it's drapey and it's nice and it's not super soft, but it's lightweight and warm, and I think just overall perfect for this cardigan. However, it doesn't have that halo that 2 strands of mohair do, and I went down a needle size in order to create a fabric that I was happier with. And because it's a raglan and you can kind of just keep increasing, I did do a swatch, and then I don't know what happened to that swatch. I think I unraveled it and then started knitting with that yarn, which not a smart thing to do because I didn't write down the information I got from that swatch anywhere. And then I made decisions as though I hadn't knit anyway. The point is, so what I did was I planned to knit between the size that I should be knitting if I had the correct gauge and the size above by just continuing to knit the raglan a little bit longer and going further, because with a raglan you can kind of do that. So I cast on for the size that corresponded with my bust measurement and then just kind of kept going, and I think I did probably 3 more increase rounds after that. And then I hit a yoke depth that I thought was kind of the maximum I was comfortable with for what I wanted from this cardigan, because my gauge wasn't too much tighter and I felt that I shouldn't knit a size up. I should just continue from the size that was recommended for my bust, assuming a different gauge. And then I separated for body and sleeves, and the pattern does not have you cast on any stitches in the underarm. You just knit the body, you separate the sleeves and the body, and then join as you would normally. So I thought by casting on 6 stitches per underarm, I could add what I needed, even though I was at a yoke depth that was the maximum for me, and have it work out. And at the time, there were so many stitches on my needle towards the end of this yoke that I was worried it was going to be almost too big, and I was okay with that because I was, like I said, the yoke depth. But I knit most of the body, as you can see, and I was trying it on, and it just seemed actually too tight after all. So I took it off the needles, put it on some scrap yarn, and did a spicy mid-project block, and the stitches haven't actually all evened out because my tension's a little messy in some points, but the stitches are nice. I like the fiber, I like the drape and the flow of this gauge, but it's 1 to 3 inches smaller than I want it to be. I want a little bit of a looser cardigan. I want it to kind of be French girl chic. I love this color. I love the buttons I got to go with it. And the amount of ease that it's giving me would be perfect for a pullover, but it's just a little bit too tight for what I want for a cardigan because I plan on wearing this, well, all of the time. I have very high hopes for this and high expectations for this cardigan, but I especially want it for the office where I wear a lot of blouses and looser shirts anyway that have some positive ease in them. And for this to be able to accommodate fitting over a loose blouse, it just needs to be bigger. And I think, and I'm at peace with this decision now, I'm going to rip out this entire thing and cast on with an extra 6 stitches up here. And I'm okay with that. I am, because I've already been working on this for 2 months. It's always been 2 rows when I have a little bit of time here as a celebration of finishing a gift knit there before bed when I don't want to do anything that requires more focus than 2 rounds of stockinette project. And so it doesn't feel like it's much of a sacrifice to rip out the entire thing as it would if I had been knitting on this monogamously. And so I'm okay with that because I have such high expectations for this. I think that if I get it right, it will be one of those things that I wear almost every day. And I don't want to settle for less than that because I love this color, I love this yarn. It was a special occasion yarn. I want this to be great, not good. And currently it sits at good. I have a vision in my head of what I want. I know I can get there. So we're gonna start with 6 more stitches up here and start again. So you'll see this is a whip in the next video too. But this is a well-written pattern. I can see why so many people have knit 3 or 4 of these when I look through the Ravelry project pages. It seems to work on so many different types of bodies. It seems to work in so many different types of yarns. It's just kind of the perfect classic cardigan, crew neck, raglan, integrated button band for me. And I already can see that I will likely make myself another one in another color at some point. I might make the button bands a little bit wider. Right now it's only a couple stitches and it's mostly an I-cord, but I might want a little bit more of a button band. I might add a stitch to each side of the button band to make it a little bit longer, but we'll see. Part of the impetus for filming this episode now is I wanted to show you guys that I promise I have been working on things before I rip out this entire thing and then show you probably like the first couple inches of a raglan yoke next video of the same thing. But this has felt like it's gone by quickly because when you only work on something for like 20 minutes a few times a week, then you look down and it's like, oh wow, I've gotten this much even though I haven't been paying much attention to it. At least that's been my experience. Okay, the buttons I got for it are really fancy and like fancier than they need to be, but I got these green shell buttons or these gray shell buttons for this cardigan. I got these on sale at Unit during their Boxing Day sale, but I still paid like $15 for 6 buttons, which is a silly amount of money for buttons, but I saw them, they were the perfect size. They're so beautiful. It's not like buttons go bad, and I can change them very easily. You just cut the button off and then use it for something else. And my mom always says that buttons really elevate something. And as a little holiday treat, and using one of the last of my full-time work paychecks, I got myself $30 of buttons. Which, when I say that, I'm a little embarrassed, but I'm happy. I like the buttons. I think they're going to be beautiful on this cardigan once I choose whether to go for the gray or the green. And it came in 6, and this needs 6 buttons, and it was so perfect. And these are 11.5 millimeters, and this asks you to have between 10 and 12 millimeter buttons. It was a match made in heaven. What was I supposed to do? Not buy the fancy buttons? Yeah. This is the Lowe's cardigan. I saw by stalking other people's Ravelry project pages that there was a cal recently featuring this sweater, but adding a chevron lace pattern. Oh, I can actually just start ripping it out now. Just in pretty basic yarn overs. And I'm going to see if I can track down the chart for how you add the chevrons so that I can have that for maybe a future Luz, because I think that the chevrons looked really nice. And like I said, I really see this becoming A, a staple in my wardrobe, and B, a pattern that I will return to in the future for another cardigan because I just really like it. I think that it is kind of the ultimate basic cardigan pattern for my taste and my needs. And I'm going through a big cardigan phase right now. I keep saving more cardigans to make, and I'm finding them to be quite practical, and I'm happy. So, going to rip out this whole thing, and I'm not sad about it. And here's a photo of it on, as I tried it on after blocking and posted to Instagram to tell everybody that I was going to rip out most of the finished body of a sweater in order to cast on 6 more stitches. Okay, my next 100% undyed wool project is my new Lakes pullover by Ozetta, which I'm knitting in Simply Wool Worsted by Knit Picks in the color Winnie. And it's really hard to show you any of this because it's all stockinette sections on hold, and they're all rolling. But here's a photo of what the lace is supposed to look like. I have just joined for the fronts, and I'm working on that. Here we go. Can I get this to cooperate? Here's the beginning of the front. Here are the saddles and the back panel that's on hold. I kept this on a wire because I have very few projects on the go right now, and why not use one of my cables for this, one of my cords for this? And I thought that having a little bit more weight would stop it from rolling so I could show you guys when I film. Hasn't really been working. But you can see the pretty substantial saddles on either side. And you can see the hole for the neck where I will soon have a pretty chunky 2x2 rib collar that I'm really excited to make. This has been a joy to knit so far. I really like Ozetta's patterns. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of a drop shoulder a lot of the time, an Ozetta seems to go for a drop shoulder construction like 90% of the time, or a saddle shoulder, which I consider to be a subtype of the drop shoulder. I love the way that Haley Smedley of Ozetta writes her patterns. I think her shaping is so fun and accurate to how bodies work, if that makes sense. It means that between the short rows and the increases and all the things you do for the back and then the shoulders and then the front, it fits really well and it keeps me engaged. And because there are many pockets of short rows and increases, it feels like the entire project is divided up into smaller sections, so I have a sense of accomplishment after I finish both of the saddles, and then once I finish the short row section, and then once I finish the other short row section, and then once the back panel is done, it feels like I get to check off items on a list, and I get that sense of accomplishment. And then also, because you're doing things at different rates with the short rows, I see it grow faster than I feel like it otherwise would. And this has been a project that I've been knitting almost exclusively since I started it, because I haven't really wanted to work on anything else. And I imagine I will have joined the front and the back by the end of this weekend, because I really enjoy it. And also it's a worsted weight pattern. It is an 18 stitch gauge, and that's pretty big, and it goes by pretty quickly, which is part of the reason why I cast it on the beginning of January. This woolly, thick, worsted sweater with a lot of ease feels like the perfect thing to celebrate and appreciate midwinter and deep winter than any of the other projects I have been considering, because I want to wear this in February, and I think I can get this done in time to wear it in February. And I really have been trying to lean into seasonality and to appreciating the seasons and marking the passage of time and being present. And knitting a woolly sweater for January just feels appropriate, and it's also going by quite quickly. I'm also very proud to tell you that I actually swatched and had to go down a needle size to get gauge as opposed to having to go up a needle size, which really makes me happy because I used to be such a tight knitter for so long, and it's really nice to have gone down and have loosened up my knitting for the health and safety of my precious hands and arms, and also just like hitting gauge for patterns. It's just so much easier. So I'm actually knitting this on a 4.5 on the knit side and a 5 on the purl side, but it's meant to be knit on 5 overall. And I also strategized so that my plan is I will hopefully hit the all stockinette portion and the knitting in the round portion of this sweater by time I get to finishing the short rows of my Lowe's cardigan once I restart it, so that I will have one stockinette in the round project and then one stockinette back and forth project, so that I don't get tired of either one and then get annoyed, because for me, I need variety in my knitting. And then I will have 2 sweaters that I will love and cherish forever. This, Lakes, is also my entry into the Young Folk Knits Bougie Sweatshirt Cal, because I do think this is the perfect bougie sweatshirt, and I will be wearing it as such for the rest of winter. I'm gonna wear this with some big earrings, maybe my hair will be up, maybe I wear red lipstick, and I will be comfy and warm. And there's just something about a worsted weight sweater with 10 inches of positive ease that almost feels like armor against the elements. So very much enjoying this. I also got this yarn for $26 US, which converts to $35 Canadian, and then the pattern was like $10 or $11, so this is going to be a $45, $46 project for me in Canadian dollars for 100% wool, which is not easy to do, and so I'm very pleased that I'm not completely losing the plot when it comes to maintaining some sort of budget in my knitting. My last work in progress is a sock that has recently exited hibernation. It's my Acorn Sock that I started in, I don't know, September or October. It's my first ever toe-up sock, and I have just gotten to the part where I start increasing for the heel. And it looks like this. This is in Artful Belle yarn in the color Cabernet, which my mom gave me as a Christmas present last year, and I think is beautiful. And I want a sweater in this color, but I think it's, arguably a little too dark for me. But I think it's really, really nice. Nathan also, my boyfriend, wants a pair of socks that match mine in this, so we'll see if he's lucky. He said dress socks, and so we'll see. But I have not really had a lot of sock mojo recently. Since about September, I might have overdone it knitting socks this summer, but my theory is that actually there is a finite amount of knitting mojo in the world. It cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed, only transferred from one knitter to another. And my sock mojo has gone down at the same time many of the podcasters I watch have suddenly appeared to have sock mojo. And so it seems that my time with the sock mojo is over for now, and it belongs to Carson of the Carsley Handmade podcast, or maybe Bethany of Well Love Knits. I don't know. But it's only just being transferred in a circle between all of us. That being said, last night I was really tired and I needed to knit a little bit after our guests left before I was able to fall asleep. I need time to wind down after seeing guests and socializing, and I didn't want to work on my legs because I was doing some shaping, and I figured after a glass and a half of wine it was not worth the risk, especially on the shoulder, which is a very present part. Like, if I make a mistake, you're gonna see it. And so I picked up my sock, and I am really happy to have this back on the needles. This is going to be, I think, my on-the-go project once I clear the heel. But I think that this is a beautiful pattern. You can't really see it because of my dark choice of yarn. This is kind of the body of it, but the real draw of this is around the ankle, and obviously I haven't gotten there yet. I like this toe-up sock, but like, knitting it is fun. I'm reserving judgment until I can try it on and tell you how I think about the fit. But part of the reason why I went for the Acorn Sock pattern by Amanita Knits is because the heel construction is a reverse heel flap and gusset, and that is the sock heel that fits me the best. And so I wanted to learn how to do that backwards, and I'm so far enjoying it. It's been exciting. So yeah, very excited to have a sock again. And also to have something more exciting than my 3 types of undyed sheep color. Now, on to acquisitions. I'm really hoping to not spend too much time on this section because I know that it's not the most exciting for the majority of viewers, but I am lucky enough to have received many different knitting-related gifts over the holidays, and I had less actual knitting to show you this week. But I want to maintain a certain type of posting schedule and also not always have an hour-long video to try and upload on our mediocre Wi-Fi. I'm going to go ahead and say that the most exciting knitting-related gift that I received is this neck lamp from my mother. My roommates and I like to have a roommate show on the go that we all watch together. First, we did Snowpiercer. Now we're slowly trying to ration out the last season of Dairy Girls, and we're about to try 1899. But the thing is we try to turn the light off so there's not glare on the TV, but I want to knit while I watch TV, and so I'm very limited in the amount of projects I can knit in the dark. And my mom cleverly got me this light. It's a reading light for around my neck. It's quite comfortable and ergonomic. These are bendy wire arms, and it has a whole bunch of different light settings on the other side too. And that's been a game changer, not just for watching TV with my roommates, But also for projects like my sock, I didn't cast this on for months because it was going to be too dark, because the sun here sets at 4:15 in the deep winter months, and you know, by the time I get home from work or school, it's going to be too dark to knit this. Not anymore. All of my navy cashmere skeins from that sweater of my father's that I unripped, I can now knit with because I have my light. So that's very exciting. I think this is also going to be good for trying to maintain a healthy, correct posture while knitting, because I think that with the light, having that as a boost to help me see my stitches means that I will not be hunching as much to see them, and I won't be bending my elbows to bring my knitting up. So thanks again, Mom. She also got me the ring light that is currently illuminating me and allowing me to film after dark. Beyond that, I received this skein of Trailhead Yarns Appalachian Trail 65% cotton, 35% nylon fingering weight yarn from a vegan indie dyer company here in Canada, which is Trailhead Yarns, because I asked for this because I knit myself an undershirt or like little tank top, but I wear it for the past many months as an undershirt. And I made one out of this yarn, and I find that to be so practical and so useful and easy to wash, easy to care for, no prickle, no itch. And I wear it as a high neck thing underneath some of my sweaters that have a little bit of a prickle factor. And I'm good to go. I have airflow to my underarms, but I'm protected against the wool, but the wool is keeping me warm. It's a great combination. So I gave us a suggestion when asked, a skein of this yarn, which I will use to make one or two more little undershirts. Love that. Very appreciative. And then I also asked for a couple skeins of colors of sock yarn. This came undone and then I reskeined it and I did a bad job. So this is not the fault of the store or the dyer, it's me. I said surprise me with colors, but please pick vibrant colors because I would like to make more colorwork socks. And my mom got me these. Thank you again, Mom. Really excited to make probably orange and lemon socks out of this. Charlotte Stone, in her Charming Colorwork Socks book, which you guys are currently sitting on top of, has a orange slice sock pattern, and yeah. And my last skein of gift yarn that I received is this BC Garn Loch Lomond in the color Earth that Emily of High Fiber Knits gave me when I met her for coffee last weekend. This is the last skein from her, she test knit it for Kadri. I want to say the Harlow sweater, is that true? I'll put it down below. I'm sure you watch Emily of High Fiber Knits though. She has achieved a lot of growth this year, a lot of recognition for her really on point videos, and I'm sure you know who she is already, and you've probably already seen this sweater, or the sweater that this is made from, either on her YouTube or her Instagram. But I met her for coffee and she gave it to me, and she thinks that this will be good for felting, and I'm excited to see if that's true. It is really soft. It is GOTS certified organic, which I've said before is an actually meaningful eco certification, and I love Grace, so I'm very grateful that she gave this to me. Thank you again, Emily. And in case you were wondering, in case you ever wonder what, at the very least, Emily and Erin of the Korean Knits podcast are like in person, they are lovely. Emily is so kind, so insightful, and so genuine, and you don't have to worry about her secretly being a menace. She is not. When we were talking, I looked down at my watch and I said, we met at 1, and I said, okay, I should probably leave at 4. And she said to me, Rachel, it's 4:30. Like, that is how easy she is to get along with, that time absolutely flies when I see her, and she's a good person, in case you were wondering. But she gave me this, which I think might become another pair of mittens, or maybe a hat, but I love mittens and I think this would be really good for them. And then things that I got for myself. Shibuy Knits is closing. I think someone told me that they're retiring. No, Erin said it on her podcast. Erin of the Korean Knits podcast also got some Shibuy on sale. Everything is 30% off as they, I think, empty their inventory because the owners are retiring. And I got 3 skeins of this Shibuy Silk Cloud in the color Graphite, which is a lace weight silk mohair with a higher silk content compared to the mohair than I've ever worked with before. This is 60% mohair, 40% silk, and you can see how much thicker that line of silk is, and how luminescent this is, and it is, in my opinion, softer than knitting for Olive. I have never knit with Shibuy before. It's normally so out of my price range that I didn't even consider it, but being 30% off and with the company closing, I figured this was my chance to use it before it is gone forever. So I got what I hope will be a sweater quantity of the mohair, and then Unit was having their annual Boxing Week sale, and I got some Knitting for Olive merino and what I think is a comparable, or at least a matching color. This is Dusty Dove Blue, and this is Graphite, and I think these are going to be combined into a truly lovely sweater. I suspect this will become a Pippin sweater. The Formation sweater by, I think, Pop Knit, which has this really lovely honeycomb stitch effect, also really appeals to me, except that is a 25 stitch gauge pattern, which is a lot tighter than I want for a mohair and merino sweater. That will be, I think, too warm for me, and also I will not have the meterage for that. But Scandinavian sizing typically has me in the smallest size, towards the high end of the smallest size, so I can't go up a needle size and knit it at a 23 stitch gauge and go down a garment size, because there's no garment size to go down, because people in Scandinavia are just typically taller and broader than I am. And so I don't know if it's worth it to try and do some jiggery pokery to change the gauge and the stitch counts in order to make that sweater work. I don't know. I would really like a Formation sweater. I think it would be fun to knit and really pretty. But one, it's not size inclusive, and two, I would really have to mess around with gauge and sizing to make it work. We'll see. Either way, this will become a sweater and I'm excited. This also I am considering transforming into a Saltings sweater, because I have that pattern from an old issue of Pom Pom that I think is gorgeous, and I have been wanting to knit in a blue. I just don't know if I want it to be this blue, and I don't know if I want it to be in a mohair. I was planning on knitting that in a wool. We'll see. I just really like the look of the Saltings, and I think it'd be so much fun to knit. I talk about it in my sweater patterns that are calling to me this autumn video. And then in that same Shibuy sale, I got their Cohen base, which is I think a sport, and it is a 70% linen, 30% silk blend. And this is the color Ivory. I got this because I knit my mother a camisole in a silk linen blend, a different base and a different blend that I got secondhand, and working with that yarn was wonderful, and it blocked out really, really nicely. I mean, it grew, so I have to rip up the whole camisole and do it again, but it really made me think, oh, I would like to make myself a garment in a mohair, no my goodness, in a linen silk combination at some point. And when this was 30% off and the opportunity presented itself, I jumped at the chance to put this in stash. I don't know if I'm going to be using this very soon, because I have other summer yarns and patterns that I would like to be knitting. But I am happy to have this in my arsenal to at some point create a nice summer blouse or t-shirt that will be a nice neutral, easy to wear, fun to knit, and very, very nice on my skin in the hot, muggy summer months. And yeah, I have spent the last 8 months working full-time and in school part-time, in contrast to the previous year where I was in school full-time and working part-time, and now I'm back to being full-time student, part-time worker. And these also kind of represent the last of stash enhancement for the next little while as my budget readjusts to being a full-time student again. And I kind of wanted to make sure I had things in stash that I could grab and knit with for the next year while my disposable income goes down, and make sure that I can keep knitting. Not that I'm like, I have a sizable stash to begin with. I'm not at risk of running out of yarn, but I am mindful of the fact that I have less money to be spending on knitting now, which is totally fine and totally normal. But I wanted to make sure I had yarn. So those are my acquisitions. That is this video. I just wanted to check in, give you a little progress update on what's been going on, what I've been making, and what I'm excited about. And hopefully we'll talk again soon and in the next couple weeks. I hope that your new year is treating you well, and I hope that we can talk again soon. Okay, bye.